Today on TimesCast, Steve Jobs' tenacious grip on his products and the future they promised. Industries far from Silicon Valley felt and sometimes fought his influence.
People in the TV business saw what had happened to music, and they were much more wary of Steve Jobs.
And in Manhattan, the physically challenged find freedom in the products Jobs helped create.
It's a game changer. I mean, everything is literally at my fingertips.
Steve Jobs died on Wednesday, October 5th, after a long battle with pancreatic cancer. I'm John Markoff, and I have covered Silicon Valley for the Times going back to 1992, and I've written about Silicon Valley since 1976, which coincidentally is the year that Apple Computer was founded. Computers were very expensive in the 1970s, and there was a hobbyist movement that grew up in Silicon Valley that was composed of a group of young men who wanted to get their hands on computers. In fact, they were so expensive that Steve Wozniak built his own computer. And Wozniak, by himself, would never have done more than play with computers. And it was Steve Jobs who really understood that there was a market for personal computing. And, that company was extremely successful even during the 1970s and 1980s. And it defined an entire industry that has really reshaped first our economy and more recently our culture. And when he came back to Apple in the 1990s, in 1997, Steve set out to basically walk through media and change the way the media was used by our culture. And he created a series of products, starting with the iPod, that really transformed American culture. He took the music player, then he took the telephone, and then he took the book, and he basically put computing in them and made magic. Steve's battle with cancer was really epic, and it was so tragic. But through all of that, he continued to run this company in a remarkable way. I mean, he realized the scope and impact of computing. One of the slogans for the Macintosh, Steve called it a bicycle for the mind. It really sort of extended computing into every nook and cranny of our culture. And what's just so sad, what's so tragic is that he died now. There's so much more in that trajectory still to do.
Steve Jobs is being remembered as a sort of giant of Silicon Valley. It's really hard to think of another contemporary CEO who's dominated not only his own industry, but another industry as well. He's been massively influential in the music business in the past 10 years. The music business was very badly burned by Napster. They did not want to distribute their music digitally, and with iTunes, really Jobs showed the way that they could turn what they thought were thieves, people taking their music for free, into customers. Now, he did it in a very bruising fashion, in a way that the music industry didn't like. He didn't let them sell albums. He insisted on a 99-cent price point. And it's been enormously successful. I think it's something like 16 billion songs have been downloaded from iTunes in the last decade, which is incredible. He's been massively influential in Hollywood, not just in building Pixar into this giant that he sold to Disney, but how the whole Pixar sensibility has come to dominate Hollywood and how it makes films.
Nothing really. Your basic vacuum formed polycarbonate with a high gloss sealer to bring out the shine.
He's trying to do the same with publishing right now, with the iPad. There were lots of other tablets before, but this was the first one that really caught the attention not only of the public, but it caught the attention of the publishers who thought, finally, this is a way for us to publish digitally. Now again, Steve Jobs only wanted it done on his terms. He wanted to keep the subscription information, which is very, very valuable to publishers, and he wanted to keep it for himself, and he had very particular ideas about what you could and couldn't publish, and a lot of people were, crying censorship and saying, why should we have to do this the way Steve Jobs does? And I think they found out in the end the way the music business did, because you have to do it the way Steve Jobs does, because he's that insistent a figure. And he has figured out a way to turn the tablet into a popular mainstream device. And so if you want to reach those people, you had to go through Steve Jobs. The one area of media that's been able to kind of resist giving over so much control to Apple has been television. I think there's good reasons for that. Apple is still a player. They put out Apple TV, which is a kind of way to get the internet on TV. But when you're taking on Time Warner and Cablevision and they have their own interests in this. That's a pretty tall order. Those people already have lines into every home in America, or virtually every home in America. But still, when you look across the broad sweep of his career, his influence in media, I would argue, in the last 10 years, has been equal, if not greater, to his influence in technology. A lot of people compare him to Edison, forgetting that Edison actually wasn't that good a businessman. I always thought a better comparison was David Sarnoff, who was the driving force behind RCA. You know, Sarnoff was the one who wanted to put radios in everybody's houses. And then after he did that, he knew that he had to feed material into those devices to make people want them, and that was the basis of NBC, first on radio. He did the same thing on TV, and then he did the same thing on color TV. It's that kind of combination of hardware and software that really transformed the media business then, and I think Steve Jobs, particularly in the last 10 years, has played that role as well.
Welcome, Gus. There we go.
And educators at Manhattan's Baruch College explain how physically challenged students find freedom in the products Jobs helped create.
It's very, I would say, moving to be able to use mainstream technology. I've been blind now for about 10 years. I use everything from the iPhone to the Mac to the iPad to even Apple TV, which all have accessibility features built into them. And it's kind of unprecedented because you don't really see that in other operating systems. I really love technology, and it's really great to have access to it, to the same technology that everybody else has.
27% battery.
Not too, I have 27% battery left. As a community, I don't think we're used to accessibility being part of the development of a product. We're used to it being an afterthought or a sidebar or an add-on.
Previous track. Play.
I can
Button.
press play. For mainstream technology to have accessibility included is a very, very big thing in our community, and I think it can only get better from this point forward.
2011/10/grocery goes high tech.
Okay, that's lovely. The iPhone, it's a game changer. I mean, everything is literally at my fingertips. I'm really pleased that Mr. Jobs, saw the rightness, if you will, and the fairness and the equality in putting voiceover into these devices, the iPad, the iPod, the iPhone, that kind of thing. So I can pick up any of those devices, turn voiceover on, and start exploring.